Hi, everyone. As you all just recently learned, I am not only a board certified neurologist and a fellowship trained MS specialist, but I am also an MS thriver myself. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in 2009. So, a lot of what we're going to talk about really hits home and it's things that are active on my mind right now. So, let's just jump right into it. And I would like to take a moment to think about how far we've really come in managing multiple sclerosis. Just 20 years ago, most people living with MS were around 45, and the main goal of treatment was simply to just stop relapses. Fast forward to today, though, those same individuals are now in their 60s, 70s, and beyond. And they're experiencing MS in new ways as they age. Nearly half of everyone living with MS today is 55 or older. And we're also seeing more people being diagnosed later in life than ever before. But here's the thing, we still don't fully understand how aging affects MS symptoms or disease activity. Researchers are working really hard to explore big questions like when should we stop or adjust therapy or treatment? And how can we tell the difference between MS changes and normal aging? Well, in the Black community or Black people living with MS, understanding how aging might affect the disease is especially important. The knowledge can help us to better guide our choices and improve health over time. Some studies do show that MS might be harder to manage with age, especially when other challenges are present. But knowing that up front gives people and their doctors the chance to plan ahead, make smart choices, and improve long term well being. So let's start with something simple but powerful, preventative care. I'm sure you've heard all about it and you will continue to hear about it. But we always know and we will forever know that early detection of any sort of health problem gives you the best chance at a good outcome. For Black individuals with MS, it's especially important to keep up with your checkups. Just in general, it's important to keep up with your checkups. You've got to go to the doctor. But things like cancer screenings, heart health visits, and regular appointments with an MS specialist is going to be important. Research shows that these visits often happen less frequently in the Black community, but we can change that. Awareness and action can lead to stronger futures. If you live with other conditions like high blood pressure or diabetes, these are what we call comorbidities. They can make your MS symptoms worse, especially things like fatigue and even sometimes speed up progression. The good news, though, and I will continue to say this, routine care, vaccinations, healthy habits, these are all things that can help you manage or even prevent them. That puts you in control of your health. Now, let's talk a little bit about MS treatment, specifically DMTs or disease modifying therapies. As we age, inflammation in MS tends to go down, but at the same time, the risk of side effects or infections go up. That's why many doctors will begin the conversation about stopping DMTs around, I typically start conversations around age 60 or 65, but not all DMTs are created equal. So some can cause disease activity to return when stopped. So decisions should always be made with your care team before stopping anything. There was a recent study where they had people over 55 taking first generation DMT, so the disease modifying therapies that came out initially. And then these groups were split into two additional groups. One group continued treatment and the other one stopped their treatments. After monitoring them for about 2 years, there was no major difference in relapses or new disease activity. That said, for some, staying on treatment can actually still help protect long term health. So, as people age and switch to Medicare, affording these medications can also get tricky, especially if copay assistance runs out. So, if Black people living with MS, open conversations with your doctor about cost and coverage could lead to better choices and real solutions. With the right support, you can find treatments that fit your health goals and, more importantly, your budget. So let's shift a little bit to lifestyle. What can you do every day to feel stronger, sharper, and more energized? MRI studies show that Black people with MS may experience more brain and spinal cord changes over time. These changes can increase with age, but there are ways to take action early. One powerful concept that I find very fascinating is called brain reserve. You can think of it almost like a savings account for your brain. You build it by learning new things. You can stay mentally and socially active. You can play brain games, exercising regularly, and just in general living a healthy lifestyle. To go back a little bit to exercise, especially cardio, can actually boost your energy, oddly enough, and also slow down brain aging. We also know from clinical trials that physical activity can form new connections for your nerve cells. And again, this can help slow down brain aging and then in general just make you feel sharper. Eating a plant forward diet or trying intermittent fasting, if that works for you, as well as avoiding harmful substances, can also help keep you biologically younger. So, good sleep, we got to sleep, y'all. We have to sleep. Low stress and avoiding smoking and alcohol overuse also goes a long way. Everyone ages, but again, you have real influence over how you age. Now, let's talk a little bit about biological age. So, this is a fascinating concept, or not really a concept, this is a true thing. Biological age is different from the number that's on your birth certificate. Biological age reflects your body's true condition based on things like your diet, sleep, stress, and even other chronic illnesses. So, for example, someone who's maybe, we'll say 38, they might actually have a biological age of 25 or a biological age of 60. And we know in studies that people with MS may age about 1.4 years faster biologically on average. But again, this is something you can influence, and it's never too late to start. Knowledge is power, you guys. So, living well with MS as you age isn't just about medication, it's about your whole life from your doctor visits to your dinner plate. It's about understanding your options, asking the right questions, and making choices that support your long term health. When you stay informed, you partner with your care team, and you take proactive steps, you're giving yourself the best shot at living fully and aging well with MS. So, thanks for tuning in for this first portion, and here's to thriving at every age. All right, you guys, let's talk about managing symptoms and taking care of your whole body health as you age with MS. So, as people with MS get older, they usually have fewer relapses. But something else starts to happen around age 45 and beyond, or personally, I feel like even younger. When you turn 30, like everything changes. But at some age, changes in your health may start to show up more often. These changes might be part of your MS or they might just be a part of getting older. And that overlap is what makes it hard to tell where MS ends and aging begins. The good news is just being aware of this can help you and your doctor respond early. That's why keeping regular appointments is so important. When you notice new symptoms, bring them up, no matter how small. Again, bring them up, no matter how small. We want to know whether it's vision problems, fatigue, sleep trouble, brain fog, or difficulty getting around. All of these things matter. They might point to MS progression, but they may also just be something that's manageable. Research has shown that Black people with MS may actually experience more of these overlapping challenges, especially when it comes to cognition, vision, and mobility. So, knowing this can help your healthcare providers offer better and more personalized support. Now, let's talk about other health problems that you might have along with MS. These are called comorbidities. So, things like your high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, lung problems, what else? Depression, anxiety. These are all things that can make your MS worse or even speed up disability. Black adults with MS are actually more likely to have multiple comorbidities than other groups. But here's the hopeful part. We always want to be hopeful. Many of these conditions can improve with healthy habits and good care. So things like eating well, staying active, taking medications when needed, and seeing your primary care doctor regularly, all of these steps go a long way. It's also important to remember that some MS treatments might not be the best fit if you have other health concerns. And sometimes those treatments can cause side effects that affect your overall health. So that's why it's so important for you to work closely with your MS specialist and your primary care provider. Together, we're all able to build a plan that works for your full body and not just your MS. Now, let's get a little bit more into the nitty gritty. Let's talk about what happens with your immune system and hormones as you age. So, as we get older, the immune system slows down. It essentially becomes less responsive. You don't need as much at that time. So, that can mean fewer MS relapses, which of course is great news. But it also means that your immune system might cause low level inflammation instead, the kind that can linger and cause symptoms like fatigue and brain fog. So, understanding these shifts can help you and your care team manage your MS more wisely. And then let's not forget about hormones. As people age, levels of sex hormones go down. So, things like your estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, these changes can make it harder for the body to protect or repair nerve damage from MS. Black women. Oh, as Black women, we often go through menopause earlier, around age 49, and we tend to experience longer lasting hot flashes and more intense symptoms. Men with MS may experience low testosterone, which can also contribute to worsening disability. So, research has shown that studying hormone therapy to see if it can help slow MS progression or support recovery is really, really fascinating. And it's a big thing or a promising area of research, but it's definitely not going to be a one size fits all solution. So further research is going to be necessary. Now, a little bit about pregnancy and menopause. So this is another area of interest for me. So I'll try and be quick with it. But pregnancy generally doesn't make MS worse. In fact, relapse rates often go down in the later stages of pregnancy. But after delivery, the risk of relapse can go up again temporarily. Menopause, on the other hand, may bring new challenges. Hot flashes, sleep problems, mood swings, all these things can make your MS feel like it's harder to manage. Some people even report more issues with memory, coordination, or fatigue just based off of their menopause. So imagine having underlying MS as well. So for Black women, again, we talked about it a minute ago, that menopause symptoms may last longer, up to 10 years on average. But as I always will come back to, there's a good news to this where you do not have to go through it alone. Your MS provider and your OBGYN can work together to build a personalized plan that supports you through these changes. Lastly, let's talk about symptom relief strategies that goes beyond medication. So when I am approaching managing MS for my patients, I approach it from two standpoints. So the first is or using disease modifying therapy. So this is to actually modify the course of your MS to slow it down or to even pause progression. And then we may have additional symptoms that we also need to manage. So that's where these additional strategies may come in. Some people living with MS find relief through integrative therapies, so things like massage, acupuncture, cannabis, or even other types of body work. These, I guess, approaches you can say aren't considered standard treatment, but many people do report feeling better when they include them in their care. So my kind of goal is as long as it makes you feel good and it doesn't harm you, if it's not doing anything to enhance your immune system, because we don't want to do that, your immune system is already overactive, then I'm fine with it. At the end of the day, we want quality of life to be improved. But also, research into these therapies is ongoing as well. And the results do look pretty promising. So it's a very fascinating field, MS right now. But of course, before you try anything new, make sure you talk to your doctor, and then together you're able to weigh all your risks and benefits and then decide what fits best into your care plan. All right, let's talk about some things that are not always easy to talk about, but it's incredibly important. Planning for progression and long term support when living with MS. Now, this doesn't mean giving up or expecting the worst, it just means thinking ahead, staying prepared, and making choices that support your independence, your health, and overall quality of life now and into the future. So let's start with a common question. What's the difference between MS that's progressing and progressive MS? They sound similar, but they're not exactly the same. MS progression refers to the gradual increase in symptoms and disability over time. This can happen to anyone with MS, even if they were initially diagnosed with relapsing remitting MS. Now, progressive MS, on the other hand, like primary or secondary progressive MS, is a form of the disease that starts or eventually turns into a steady worsening without clear relapses. For people who are diagnosed after age 50, it's more common to see a progressive pattern from the beginning. But then aging itself plays a role too. As we get older, the brain naturally shrinks, and this is true for everyone. But in MS, that shrinkage can make existing symptoms feel worse or harder to recover from. For Black adults, health challenges like high blood pressure, diabetes, and obesity can also speed up this process. And then this added stress on the body and the brain is sometimes what we call weathering, and it can be linked to faster brain aging. But here's the good news, you can take action by building brain reserve. So, doing things like continuing lifelong learning, staying socially connected and socially active, living a healthy lifestyle. All of these things can help to protect your brain. Brain reserve is going to help to better cope with MS changes and reduce the impact of aging over time. Now, we want to make sure we have the right diagnosis too, though. So, diagnosing MS in older adults can also sometimes be kind of complicated. Why, you ask? because aging itself can create changes in the brain that look familiar to MS, or look similar, I should say, to MS on an MRI. So you have small vessel disease, which is very common in people over 60. I also call this kind of hardening of the artery. So everyone, as we age, our blood vessels become less flexible, more likely to have plaque buildup on the walls of them. And this actually kind of starts in our 30. But this can leave white spots on the brain that can mimic MS lesions. So this is why it's so important to have a neurologist who's experienced with MS help with the diagnosis or make that diagnosis. And if you're not sure about a diagnosis, do not hesitate to ask for a second opinion. Getting a clear diagnosis is going to be the first step towards getting the right care. Now, in general, you've been diagnosed with MS, and now you're curious about what to expect going forward. What's my prognosis? Well, MS is unpredictable, but we do look at certain early signs to get a sense of how it might behave. But people who have fewer relapses in their first few years, so those who might recover fully from relapses or show mostly sensory symptoms, we find that they tend to do a little bit better long term. On the other hand, people with early mobility issues, tremors, or even mini lesions on the MRI, they may face a more challenging course. Now, this information isn't about labeling your future. It's just about making smart, proactive plans with your care team. We know that people living with progressive MS may notice some additional changes as they get older as well. Along with common aging experiences like feeling tired or having trouble remembering things, they might also have challenges with things like speech or swallowing. So it can be helpful at times to work with a speech language pathologist to manage these issues and improve communication and comfort. When aging with progressive MS, it's important to talk to your healthcare team early when new symptoms appear. So you got to stay connected and make sure that your family and caregivers are also there to support along the way. Now let's move on a little bit to talk about mobility and remaining independent. So the longer someone lives with MS, the more likely it is that mobility could become a challenge. Black people with MS, according to research, may show or reach certain disability milestones up to 6 years earlier. But the earlier you get support, like physical therapy or occupational therapy, or even assistive technology, the more options you will have. So there are mobility tools like canes, walkers, scooters, and wheelchairs that can help you to stay active, not limit you. You don't have to guess which one is best. A physical or occupational therapist can evaluate your needs and help you choose what supports your goals and your lifestyle. Other ways that you can do to help with remain independent will be to modify your home. So many people want to stay in their homes as they age, and with some changes, that's absolutely possible. Modifying your space can make everyday activities easier and safer. So simple things, well, I won't say simple, but things that can be simple with help, such as adding ramps or grab bars, stair lifts, wider doorways, or accessible bathrooms can make a huge difference. And it's not just for MS, these changes can actually help the whole family. Some states even offer tax credits to help pay for accessibility upgrades. You can also talk to a certified aging in place specialist who can assess your home and recommend personalized modifications. So at the end of the day, it's all about helping you stay in a space you love while feeling secure, confident, and capable. So planning for progression doesn't mean expecting the worst. It means setting yourself up for the best possible future by thinking ahead, understanding your care options, and creating the right support systems. When you do that, you're building a life that's prepared and empowered. I love that word, empowered. So remember, you are not alone on this journey. There are tools, providers, resources, and communities ready to support you every step of the way. Thank you for joining me in this important conversation about long-term MS care.